About the definition of our primary objective of price stability, we have to clarify in particular our time horizons, our various time horizons, as well as our commitment to symmetry.
Well, that was the Banque de France governor, François Villeroy de Galhau, speaking in Tokyo with the Bank of Japan governor Haruhiko Kuroda. Now let's talk more about the ECB. Huw van Steenis with UBS, Christian Schulz, Citi Economics team director, are both still with us. Christian, I feel like we should start with you because you're in Frankfurt and they've given the ECB most pushback. What can Christine Lagarde do to get the Germans on side?
Well, I think the most important thing is for the ECB to maintain price stability. Of course, from a German perspective, there's this twist towards perhaps lower inflation is better than higher inflation. But gaining the Germans' trust, I think, is very, very important. At the same time, she has very good contacts to Berlin. She's worked with Angela Merkel throughout the Euro crisis and thereafter. So she probably has some leverage there and can tell people what she already said in her big speech here in Frankfurt last week, that there is a shortfall in demand and that monetary policy is only one of the tools that can address that. So I think that logic will be transmitted again and again to Berlin. And I think that's where many of the hopes of all these central bankers at the moment go, that Berlin opens the floodgates and stimulates the economy.
You think that's right, Huw? Will they?
It's certainly on my trips to Germany, that's not my impression. I mean, obviously, the demand for fiscal policy is pretty intense. No, look, I think the president's got a really interesting opportunity with a strategic review to challenge some of the status quo. And in some ways, my view is that the inflation targeting is maybe the least interesting of the changes. I think one would be, obviously, I still think that negative rates are doing more harm than good. But maybe we should change the way we think about it. One weakness in the ECB's institutional structure is it doesn't have a macro-prudential body. You know, that's done at the EU28 level. It doesn't have an FPC like the Bank of England. And I think actually having a macro-pru body for the ECB would be incredibly valuable. How do they weigh up stress testing the banks? How do they think about are negative rates doing more harm than good in terms of asset bubbles? The ECB's own financial stability report actually started talking about the side effects. But what are they going to do about it? They don't have any powers. So actually having powers at a macro-prudential level, I think can be a really important game changer for the ECB.
Yeah, and Christian, to Hugh's very good point, how much is negative rates actually hurting German banks?
Substantially, right? I mean, we've got enormous retail deposits at these banks, which they effectively charge zero interest rates on, but then they have to invest that money at pretty much the ECB's policy rate, so 50 basis points. That puts these retail deposits in negative carry, and that means that they have to cross-subsidize these depositors from somewhere else. So what used to be the business model, that you take the money from the grandmothers and others who put it in the savings books and lend it out to the bakers, and the grandmothers subsidize the bakers, now going the other way potentially. The bakers are subsidizing the grandmothers, and that's not good for the economy overall. But it's clearly a problem that is not really the ECB's problem. It's a legislative problem, or it's a business practice problem, that banks still don't pass on these negative rates to their customers, and they probably should start doing that, and that would potentially make at least this reversal rate for banks wouldn't be such a big problem anymore. But I just wanted to quickly say something on this fiscal stimulus as well. I also don't think that we are going to see big fiscal stimulus from Germany anytime soon, and that's also, I think, not necessarily a bad thing, because the history shows that fiscal stimulus in Germany is maybe effective in the short run, but usually creates big long-term problems.